be a better one. Yeah, I think that's a good one. Yeah, there we go. That's what we're looking for. Look at that stud, dude. Hey everyone, I know if you're like me, I mean, this is probably one of those times of years where more people get excited about going fishing than any other. I mean, we're looking at water temperatures in the upper 50s, even into the low 60s. I mean, you're kind of finally past most of the major cold fronts. I mean, you kind of are to that point where you really feel like, you know, the fish are coming, they're going to the bank, they're going through their spawning ritual, or they're getting ready to, and you really don't have to worry about fishing offshore. You know, the biggest thing to me about this time of the year, so often when I shoot these videos and do various things, I'm talking about don't get caught up in just fishing your way around pockets. The one thing about it, this time of year, you pretty well have to kind of do that. I mean, you don't ever know where these fish are going to end up necessarily to spawn. There's possibilities, you know, of places that are going to be more unique than others, but I mean, they can truly be anywhere. So you really do have to just kind of put the trolling motor down, cover a lot of water, and really do it with a lot of different baits. I mean, I figure today we're going to probably throw a crankbait. We're probably going to, you know, pitch a jig around a little bit, pitch a fighting frog around a little bit. I mean, if we get in the right water conditions, you know, possibly even throw a spinnerbait a little bit, swim bait. But everything we do today is going to be less than, in my mindset, probably less than 8 foot. I feel like with the water temperatures being where they are, the moon phase coming like it is, just the fact that spring has sprung, these fish are going to be shallow, and that's the way we're going to fish for them today. Boy, they're just barely getting that crankbait today. Just not in a very good mood, are they? Whole crankbait sticking out of his mouth. But like I said, I mean, the biggest thing about it is just trying to cover water. And I mean, that fish ain't gonna do anybody any good on a tournament day. But I mean, when you start catching them that size and you start, you know, getting a few more quality bites, I mean, you know you're around an area that's got a lot of fish. And I mean, one thing about it, a crankbait, when they're getting close to spawning, especially on these windy, overcast days, is a good way to get it done. I mean, you can cover a lot of water, you can get around them, and once you get around them, if you need to slow down, pick a jig up, pick a plastic bait up, a stick type bait, things like that, you're going to be able to catch better quality fish as the day progresses. Isn't as good as I thought he was. They just are mean and pull hard this time of year. So, you know, like I was saying earlier, I mean, a lot of times you just got to work your way into these areas, you know, throwing a reaction bait or something like that and slowing down. I mean, if they won't cooperate and bite, you know, we just picked up a little 1/2 ounce brown jig with a little big bite college cock trailer. And, you know, these fish are getting to the point where there's definitely males up there on the bed, or up there starting to make beds. I mean, there's probably some fish in the spawning stage, but you've just got all phases of fish happening right now, and there's fish coming, there's probably some fish that have already spawned, but you just got to kind of fish around the opportunities that you're given. You know, move where you can move, pick up a shallow running crankbait, cover some water, but when you get in an area where you feel like there's some activity and there's some fish in the area, slow down and, you know, pick up a jig, pick up a plastic bait of some sort, a fighting frog. You've got to slow down and visualize the fact that you're fishing that bait through and around beds. You've got to give fish time to, you know, decide they want to bite it. It's not that typical pitch in by a, you know, an object, a lay down or a log or a bush, and expect one to get it on the initial entry. It's generally one of those deals, you pitch it in there, you shake it around a little bit, move it a little bit, and, you know, you're hoping to entice a fish that's either building a bed or on a bed to go ahead and commit when you actually can't see them. A big one. Not a big one, and the wrong kind. It's an old spotted bass. But I don't know if you've been paying attention, but I mean, one of the biggest things that I do like to do this time of year, and I mean, that's a little bitty one, but A lot of guys, I think, get too hung up on when they're fishing around the spawn. They feel like they've got to be fishing flatter gravel type banks. I mean, a lot of times I'll start, you know, on the end of a channel swing or something close to some gravel, but there's a lot of fish that spawn on steeper stuff than a lot of people give it credit for. I mean, the biggest thing, like I said, that you've got to do is, you know, realize when those fish tell you that they are spawning, that you just got to slow down. I mean, that fish right there, I don't know if it's the same one that bit me twice, but I made the same pitch 2 times in a row, missed him the first time, pitched right back in there the second time and caught him. I'm just throwing a, you know, 4.5 inch fighting frog, Texas rig, just fishing extremely slow, and through the course of the day, we're going to catch a big one doing this. I mean, I don't know when and where, but we're going to catch a big one doing this. I guarantee you that fish was on a bed. All them little males start to show up. That's the other thing about this time of the year. I mean, it gets harder and harder to catch a big female. I mean, these males get so aggressive, and especially when you're fishing water conditions where you can't visibly sight fish for them, it gets tougher to catch better ones because, you know, you're not seeing them. You're at the mercy of jerking on everything that bites you. And I promise you, that's a male sitting on a bed, threw in there twice. He bit it both times. A lot of times, that first time when you come through a bed, the female will bite. And sometimes during the course of the spawn, even though I would rather have a jig in my hand when I'm trying to catch a good one, you'll definitely get more bites flipping plastic and fishing plastic baits than you will necessarily fishing a jig. I just feel like your bites definitely, the quality does go up when you put a jig on and just keep it in your hand. Oh, there's one. That might be a little better. Nope, about the same. You know, the thing about it, I was just sitting here thinking to myself, I mean, one of the biggest things when it comes to fishing this way, this time of the year, during the spawn, is the way you go about doing it. I mean, I've talked about fishing slow, being methodical, but I mean, when I'm fishing a jig especially, I think the biggest thing that someone taught me years ago or said to me was, you know, when you're fishing a jig, early in the spring especially, and really through the course of the year, there's very few crawdads that are down there jumping up and down off the bottom. I mean, I see so many people that when they're fishing a jig, you know, they pitch it out there and they're like hopping it. And there are times of the year that, yes, I think that does play. But this time of the year, when fish are in that spawning mode, when they're on the bottom, when they're moving to the bank, you want to visualize that little jig being a crawfish down there crawling around on the bottom. And you want to keep it in contact with the bottom all the time. I mean, very seldomly will I hop it that much at all this time of the year. And, you know, the whole aspect of what you're fishing with makes a big difference. I mean, I'm always going to be using fluorocarbon lighting this time of year. You know, you want to be able to keep contact with that bait. Generally anywhere from about 16 to 20 pound test, sunlight fluorocarbon. I want a reel that's not too overpowering too fast. I usually always throw a 6/8 to 1 gear ratio reel. And then the rod I like to throw, and it's one of my favorite Falcons ever, is just a 6174. It's got a fast tip, but it's got plenty of backbone, so when you have the opportunity to lay into one and you catch a big one, you've got the rod to handle it. Might be a better one. No. I gotta go. Again, I mean, here we are right smack dab in the middle of a channel swing. I mean, again, it's not a big one by any means, but a bunch of males. But if you look right here to the side of the boat, I mean, you can definitely tell where you've got places that you've had rock slides off of this bluff. And I mean, that's what I'm talking about. I mean, so many people think you got to be in those gravel pockets. You've got to be in those traditional spawning type areas that you think of. And that's not always the case. I mean, I keep thinking if I get this jig in my hand and just keep throwing it, I'm going to catch a big one. But the males are biting today, and they're biting good. The other thing I will say, and I don't know if you noticed, but I put my jig down and picked up fighting frog again. The big thing that I like a little softer rod when I'm throwing a fighting frog, or a jig, I'm sorry. When I'm throwing a jig, I like a 6174. When I'm throwing this fighting frog or plastics typically, I like to go to the Amistad or the Amistad XH. It just, to me, when you're kind of flipping more so than just dragging a jig around, sometimes it's better to have a little bit stiffer rod, and that's why I like that Amistad or the Amistad XH when I go to pitching Texas rig plastics around this time of year. Still not a big one. I really thought that might have been a big one when it bit. So I don't know if y'all can tell, and I don't know if it's the lunar or solar eclipse, but one or the other is going on right now. When we set this up to get out here and enjoy the day fishing and filming, had no idea it was going to be happening, but right now, I mean, I don't even have my sunglasses on. I mean, it is not dark, but it is like eerie out here. And the one thing I'll say is once that moon started passing in front of the sun, I mean, they started biting. So you may want to wait till the next lunar eclipse before you even worry about going fishing. Might be a better one. Yeah, I think that's a good one. Yeah, there we go. That's what we're looking for. We finally got one of them old females to bite. Indeed. Get on up here, baby. Now that right there is what we've been after. Big old 5-inch fighting frog. Big old heavy flipping stick, 20-pound fluorocarbon line. And I mean, that ain't a giant, but that's a 3 1/4. Put 5 of them in the boat, 4 of them in the box with a 5 or 6 pounder, you've had yourself a day. Like I said, I mean, you can see the way I'm set up on this bank. I'm on a steeper bank. Been throwing a fighting frog, been throwing a jig. We threw a crankbait a little bit. I never really had the right conditions to pick that swim bait up. But that right there, when they get up there on the bank and they start doing the deal, that right there is what you're looking for. Big old fat females. Gotta love it.